Well, now we come to the third part of our evening, to the third really important reason that we're here, and that's the presentation of the Cross and Crown Awards. We have two posters up here. We've actually commissioned some plaques that'll be hung on the walls out in Aldersgate. We'll probably have them in a couple of weeks. Tells the story of the Cross and Crowns Award, lists the previous winners. So if you get a chance before you leave tonight, come up here and take a look at them, and they'll be on the walls outside in Aldersgate pretty soon. So now I'd like to call on Stan Copeland to announce and make the awards for our 2018 Cross and Crown Award.
Thank you, Paul. And Paul,
Different Paul.
Different Paul.
Yeah.
You leave.
Yeah. You know, we had two Pauls. We were both born at Baylor Hospital when it was called Florence Nightingale. I think they switched us at birth.
Paul, I appreciate you sharing, and I appreciate the memories I have of Polly and Leo. And there's one picture we're going to have to dig out from Archives and History. It's of Leo on a motorcycle with flags draped on the church. I think it was Memorial Day. But I remember that picture, and we're going to find it. I do want to say that thank you to the foundation for coming up with these wonderful plaques that will don the hallway of Aldersgate Hall. And it will remind us of what this Cross and Crown Award is all about, and also the wonderful honorees who have received this award through the years. I do want to say that, as we know, this is named after Elizabeth and Dick Price, and you've heard their stories before, and you've heard Elizabeth's story related to the cross that she had commissioned and put in the sanctuary, as well as the cross in Ship Chapel that she had commissioned that she never saw. But we remember her story in her 90s, how she got into an Alpha course, and she got closer to her Lord and closer to what the cross was all about. And as we know, the day that she dedicated that cross, the last week of her life, 3 times she climbed into the big pulpit, that little bitty lady with that great big heart, and she said thank you to us in a most eloquent way, identically 3 times. And the 3rd time that she said that great thank you, I helped her to the back of the chancel in the sanctuary, and there were 2 young men from her Alpha class that literally one of them picked her up and took her to her car and drove her home, put her in her bed at Presbyterian Village, and that's where she died. But before she did, I got to visit her, and I'll never forget what she said. And this is the spirit of the Cross and Crown Award. She said, "Son, I hope I've done enough. I hope I've done enough." Here was a woman who had commissioned the kneelers in Ship Chapel, who had commissioned the cross in Ship Chapel, who had commissioned the cross in the sanctuary, who had given the furniture for the CSD. And she said that not in any kind of way wondering about what she gave and whether or not that was enough for her to earn any kind of entrance into heaven. No, not at all. She said that because her generosity was one that she just couldn't give enough to one who she knew had given all. And those who have received this award personify that kind of generosity of people who give of themselves, give of their time, give of who they are and what they have, so that this church can continue to strengthen our ministry and outreach. And we have 2 couples tonight who will be receiving this award, and I want to introduce them to you. They need no introduction, but I want to remind all of us of their wonderful spirits and participation here. I remember another picture that we had in one of our capital campaigns. I think it was the one in 2000. It was a picture of the day the sanctuary was dedicated. And there were hundreds of people in the sanctuary that day, but in the very center of the picture, there is Janie and Don Bowles, and they're just jumping out of the picture, in essence, with great big smiles. Don had really, really, really dark hair. And I want to say about these two, I don't know of anyone who has given any more to this church in so many different ways than the two of you. As we know, Janie's heartburst was congregational care. And through the years, especially when her mom got sick, Janie stepped up her involvement in creating Heartstrings Ministry for this church, which was a partnering ministry that coupled volunteers of this church with older adults so that we would have regular visits for those older adults. Janie championed that cause as well as other causes related to congregational care. And Janie, we want to say thank you to you for your wonderful involvement through the years. Don's involvement has also been in the area of administration and helping with finance committee and so many different ways of leadership in this church, as well as through his own profession, helping this church stay out of trouble through our insurance, right, Don? But we are so thankful for them and for their involvement here. They joined the church shortly after the sanctuary was dedicated, 1978. They became UMYF counselors back then when the kids were young. Lisa, great to have you here tonight, and Ryan. And your families, wonderful family. And they joined the sanctuary choir, telling Terry Price, who was the choir director, they were going to the UK and that they would be in the choir, and told him that they'd probably be retiring from the choir upon their return. And 20 years later, they were still in the choir until just a few weeks ago when that retirement has been granted finally. But for the years of faithful service in the choir and making the music ministry of this church so very special, we want to say thank you to the two of you. And your involvement in the Adams and Eve Sunday School class for many years, and it seems like any time that this church needed you in a special way, we can always call on Janie and Don. So it is with a great deal of admiration and pleasure that we want to give you one of the Cross and Crown Awards, and Paul Ditto is making his way, and let's give Janie and Don Bowles a round of applause.
The award each year is actually a small replica of the cross and crown that hangs on our wall in the sanctuary. So it's with great honor that we bestow this on you, and we want to thank both of you for everything that you've done. This is just not enough, but we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
The second couple who is the recipient tonight of the Cross and Crown Award, in my 20 years of ministry here, I can't really think of the church without Catherine and Stephen Arata and their leadership. I want to talk about Catherine first, because Catherine and I kind of grew up in the same circles, in the Methodist circles in the Texas Conference, and know a lot of the same people, and have been blessed by the church throughout those years. We've heard Catherine's story that she has shared with us about her involvement in the church, but her story is one that continues to unfold. Catherine has been a part of the leadership of this church in so many different levels. I remember the second capital campaign that we did here that was so very critical. She and Stephen stepped up and were co-chairs of that capital campaign that was so highly successful. We know Catherine not only from her administrative duties, but we know her as one of the most active, doer-type Christians that you could ever imagine. Amen? And on Wednesdays, you can find her with several tables full of women knit, purling, and praying their way through to make prayer shawls so that we can extend God's love through that gesture of giving a prayer shawl and saying, this church is praying for you. And I told her that we needed 10,000, and I think she's getting pretty close. 3,280. But I want to say that Catherine Arata has done so very much for this church, and we are so very appreciative of what she does day in and day out. And I see one of the prayer shawls right there, and we are so very, very thankful for you and your leadership. I think Stephen has served in leadership capacity in nearly every way in the church, including being on the Board of Stewards for years and the Finance Committee within the Board of Stewards, and helping us with his brilliant finance mind to get in some very good places related to our church going forward. Stephen was very instrumental in creating what we call our 5-year plan that I think we're working quite well. And I want to remember a situation where Stephen had breakfast with me and told me that they were going to be going to England. And it wasn't supposed to be for very long, but I remember it was for too long. But he came back. But the thing I remember the most, though they were very involved in the church in England and very involved in with their children in continuing that faith development journey, we continued to be blessed by the generosity of the Aratas who were overseas for those years, who continued to remember their church. And as soon as they got back, thanks to their kids saying, hey, we've got to go back to Lover's Lane, they made their way in a big way to Lover's Lane. And again, we want to thank them for their current leadership in our newest capital campaign that will usher in our 75th anniversary and their involvement in that way. The two of you are so deserving of this award, so let's give the Aratas our appreciation.
So, Catherine and Stephen, it is with great honor that we bestow one of the 2018 Cross and Crown Awards on you. We are so grateful for everything you've done for the foundation and everything you've done for the church. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. I want to say thank you to all of you and to the Foundation Board for all that you do for the church. This is a great event each and every year. Not only do we recognize such deserving Cross and Crown recipients, but it's also a night of inspiration and a night for your pastor to say to you, thank you for your generosity. As we grow this foundation, we will continue, as we've already heard testimony tonight, to grow this church's ministry and outreach. May God bless us in that wonderful quest.
Thank you.